So today what I want to talk about is day 28, and I want to talk about success through adversity and what does success look like to you. So growing up, from a kid till now, I've always had three real heroes or role models in my life. And what I want to do is kind of share their story, what I guess their idea of success was, and what my idea of success is. And again, it's titled Success Through Adversity. So the first person growing up that I could think of that I really was just influenced by was my Tío Ray, or my Uncle Ray. And I don't know his whole backstory. It's only what I get from my cousins and my aunt. But from what I understand is he was born in Mexico. He was born very poor. I believe he was somewhat of an orphan. I don't know what happened to his parents. But I know that he was living on the streets and literally eating out of trash cans. And some point in his life, he made it across over here to California. I believe an aunt took him in. Um, she kind of helped him along. And all I know is from his mouth, he told me that he put himself through community college. And he remembers just a lot of people making fun of him because he didn't speak English. And so he forced himself to learn English. And even when he had an accent still, he pushed harder to graduate. He got his GED. He graduated from community college. I'm not sure what he graduated with exactly, but I know that a lot of his life he did a lot of mechanics. But again, he didn't know anything when he came here, and he pushed himself to not only learn English, learn a trade, but then he became a citizen. And I remember that was one of the biggest achievements that I remember him speaking about was when he became a citizen of the United States of America. And he later on was able to provide the whole time he provided for his family. My aunt and I had six cousins in that family, and he provided housing for them. He bought his house. That was his American dream, was to buy a house, and it was so big that a lot of my cousins lived there as they were making their way up, and that was his success story. I mean, literally from eating out of garbage cans to having home ownership and being able to see his kids. I mean, um, I believe two of my cousins are police officers. One is an entrepreneur. He owns his own fitness place. And, from what I see, he did what he could to provide a safe living place for my cousins to achieve their means of success. So my Theo Ray, that's number one. Number two is my Theo Augie. And again, I don't know his whole backstory, but he's my grandma's brother. And my grandma moved here from Texas, El Paso, Texas, to California. And at some point, I believe when my Theo Augie was 17, my grandma's little brother, he asked, hey, can I move in with you guys? And my grandma and grandpa have always had this open door policy. Their doors were always open. They would always let you stay with them to get back on your feet or get where you needed to go. And so my Theo Augie, my Uncle Augie, came over from Texas without a dime in his pocket. I believe he just had a suitcase full of clothes. And he got into air conditioning. And then I believe he just worked his way up through, air conditioning and became a journeyman. And then he put himself through night school, business school. And he soon opened up a company called Airflow out here in Southern California. And it was a huge air conditioning company a few years back. And from there, he unionized, I believe. I don't know if he did or didn't. But I know it became a really big company for Southern California for air conditioning. And years later, as he got older and he retired, even after he retired, he was still kind of going in and working. And finally, he sold the business for a couple $1 million, I believe. But the whole time, he tried to maintain a good family life. I think it was kind of hard because he was with the business a lot. But to know that he came again, another family member that came from nothing, literally with a suitcase in his hand, years later was able to sell his business for over $1 million. And I believe it's one of the bigger companies that are still out there today. And they kept the name, they kept the clientele, everything else. And but he was able to, from a suitcase in his hand, to build a business and sell it off for over $1 million. And the last one was my grandfather. And I don't know the whole story for my grandfather, but I know that he was the first one out of his immediate family born here in the USA. They came from a little city called León, Guanajuato in Mexico, and he was one of the first ones born over here in actually Yuma, Arizona. And he made his way over here to California. And from what I remember him telling me was that he quit school like in second or third grade because it was during the Depression and his brother had died, so he had to go help his family make money, and he took over his older brother's job, who actually had passed away. And through that, he had a lot of odd jobs. He worked in a pharmacy. He tells me about a time when he worked in a drugstore where they used to make like homemade ice cream and malts and soda when they would pour the salsa and the syrup, and that's when they had, I mean, back when soda, I guess, was first starting. And then he would tell me about being a migrant worker, and he would just go up and down California, and when he was in Arizona, and he would just be picking fruit and vegetables, and it wasn't anything he was ever ashamed of. And years later, he opened his own barber shop. He was very successful as a barber. And then he got into the school district, and he was a custodian for many years. And he retired from the Hacienda La Puente School District. And I remember I was in, I don't know, maybe third grade, second grade when he retired, maybe a little bit older, I'm not sure. But I remember when they had the retirement, my mom and dad woke me up and said, "Hey, we're not going to school. We're going to go do something for your grandfather." And I remember seeing my cousins when I went to the school. The school he retired from was Wedgeworth Elementary. And I remember the whole school district was there. The superintendents, teachers from other school sites, principals, and they all came out just to honor him. And I've never seen anybody do this for a custodian or for a janitor, if you will. But they did skits for him about, the kids dressed up. One was a janitor dressed up as my grandfather. And they honored him with these awards. And it was just something really special. I didn't really understand the impact back then that it did for my grandfather, but years realizing now, like, I've never seen that for a janitor or custodian for any business or any school or anything like that. But it shows the impact that he made in other people's lives. And through all his jobs and what he came up with from the Depression till later in his years, he was able to pay off a house and raise his three sons, my dad and my two uncles, and provide very well, not only for his family, but also for his grandkids. There was a time that I stayed there because I had no work, and my grandpa had that open door policy. My grandma had passed away, and I was there kind of helping my grandpa, but in a big way, he helped me out. And so looking back at these three men in my life, it was just like, oh man, it was amazing. I mean, my grandfather was really kind of my second dad. He's the one who taught me how to shave. He's the one who taught me how to tie a tie. And my uncle, the one, my Tio Augie, that had that airflow company, he gave me a very valuable lesson one time because I had just became an apprentice into the apprenticeship for the drywall that I do. And I needed a truck, and I knew he had money. And so I went to him and I said, "Hey, Theo, look, can I borrow X amount of money? I want to get a car. I just need a vehicle." And I remember straight, he told me, he says, "Anthony, I'm not going to lie to you. I have the money, but I can't loan it to you." And I said, "Theo, what? I know you have the money. Why can't you loan it to me?" And he says, "If I loan it to you, I'm going to have to loan it to everybody." And he says, "I have no doubt that you have intentions and that you would pay me back, but not everybody would. And everything that he's built up, if he just loaned it out on good faith to people, then he would lose his money because he would never have it back." And though I didn't understand it at the time, and I was upset because I was like 19, I think 20 years old, and like, oh man, this guy, he doesn't want to loan to me, I realize now he was a good steward of his finances. Because he told me if it was for something else, medical reasons, or there was a death in the family, he would give me the money without even asking. But because it was a loan and it was for something that he knew that I just needed to work for, and I didn't understand that part yet, he said no. But it was very good advice. And just seeing these three men coming literally from nothing, one eating out of a trash can, one with nothing but a suitcase in his hand, one with only a second or third grade education, and they made it to their level of success. Maybe it's not what celebrities show. Maybe it's not what we see on TV or by sports stars. But success meant that they left a legacy not only for their own family, but for generations down the line, for their grandkids, for their grandkids' kids. It's just awesome to see and know that this is in my family blood, to know this is where I come from. So no matter what's happened in my past, and I have a past, no matter what's happened in my past, that maybe one day one of my nephews or my nieces, hopefully one of my sons or my daughters can say, "Man, I know my dad made it through. I know my Theo made it through. And if he can make it through that, then I know I can make it through that." And a success through adversity. I mean, what is it that some people let the littlest things take them out. They tried and they failed and that's it. It wasn't for me. No, I don't believe that. You guys have heard my failing forward video on these great minds that failed. And they failed and they failed. But this is, what are you going through? What are you struggling through? And who's counting on you? What's counting on you? What's the cost? Are you willing to strive and make it through that adversity, that setback? Are you willing to count the cost and just go for it? Just go all out. Success through adversity. It's just all. My grandfather passed away, and my two uncles are up in age. I believe one, my Theo Augie, he's probably close to 80, maybe in his 70s, and my Theo Ray, he's probably in his late 60s or early 60s right now. But to be honest, I don't have much contact with them anymore, just because as the years moved on. We really don't talk that much. But these are men that I will always hold in high regard for what they did, and to have no excuses of why I can't do something myself. And again, maybe success to you isn't the same that it is to me, but to know that I can provide for my family, to know that I can provide for my children and my children's children. The Bible says something like a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, for his grandchildren. And it's not just about how much money can I make right now for me, but looking down the line. And I know that real estate investing will allow me to do this, to give that legacy to them. So what is it that you have to make it through? What is that you're maybe struggling through right now that you don't think you can make it? I guarantee you can make it. I know you can make it. I said it before. You have greatness in you. We all do. We all do. Where are we pulling strength from? That's the question. Where are you pulling your strength from? So I encourage you guys to keep on hustling through the adversity. I know it's going to be a tough struggle sometimes. You're going to hit some walls, but you got to keep going. You got to keep going. There's greatness in you. You have greatness in you. You can do it. So today, day 28, success through adversities. Talk to you guys tomorrow.